you ready to pull your hair out about all the tension that there is in America today? It is not stopping. It's getting worse. Even little kids are getting involved in all these protests. We need to do something, and I have the cure. The cure is to go see a movie. Not just any movie, but the movie Patriots Day that I saw last night. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard of it. It's a movie about the Boston bombing, the Boston Marathon bombing, and the hunt for the terrorists afterwards. This was the bombing that took place on April 15th, 2013 on Patriots Day. And it's about the two brothers, Zokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, Chechen brothers, who were schooled by looking at how to make bombs on the internet, Al-Qaeda instructional tapes, and they followed these things well. In fact, they were actually planning to do a bombing on July 4th, but they were able to put the bombs together so much more quickly that they did it on April 15th instead. Quick learners. They must have great instructions. Anyhow, why do we have to watch this? Well, number one, we have to watch it because we are forgetting about terrorist attacks. We are getting so desensitized. I mean, the most recent attack, the shooting attack at the Florida airport, is not even on the front page, or not even really being spoken about anymore, and that just happened. Now, the danger of that, folks, is that we don't remember who the enemies really are, and we start fighting with each other. And we've made enemies of half the United States. Half of us are fighting against the other half. And that is very, very bad, because it's the stress is making all of us weaker, which is making us more vulnerable to terrorism. Well, let me tell you about three of the lessons that you can learn from this movie. First of all, what's wonderful about it is that unlike the television reports, the news reports, this is in the big screen. The bombs are you really get the full sense of the explosions and even the gunfights with the police afterward and so on. The truth, really, you're able to see better on the big screen. We need to learn certain things from the movie. First of all, we can better understand how there were 3 people who were killed in the bombing, including an 8-year-old boy. Then there were police who were killed afterwards. There were 264 people who were killed during the bombing itself. You can see in the streets. You get the full picture, folks, because you see limbs lying in the streets and you see blood all over the streets. I mean, you get to see what it was really like, not the relatively sanitized version on the small screen of our television. And we also see some things that teach us stuff for the future terrorist attacks. First of all, the FBI agent in Boston did not want to name it a terrorist attack. And we've been having this problem with subsequent terrorist attacks as well. He said, well, no, I don't want to call it that. I mean, here the rubble is all around him, body parts all around him. And I don't know if this is a terrorist attack. Could be, I guess. Anyway, he says he doesn't want to call it that because it gets political, and also because there'll be a backlash of anti-Muslim sentiment. Well, we have to call it what it is. These 2 brothers were Chechen, and I mean, whatever it is, that's what we need to know. Okay, so he said that's why he didn't want to tell them. Finally, he reaches down in the rubble, and he sees things that he recognizes as typical things from terrorist attacks. And so finally, he agrees to call it a terrorist attack. Obviously, if we call it earlier, people can be of greater help in trying to find the terrorists and just trying to help the whole situation. That goes into the second part. The FBI agent didn't want to show the photographs of the terrorists. They were able to find them pretty quickly. It was amazing through video of the scene and following the video backwards and seeing who was carrying a backpack and where the backpacks were. And it was just amazing. And they did. They called them white hat and black hat. And it was they had the pictures. But he didn't want to tell, wanted to keep it a secret, because really I think it was because he didn't want to acknowledge that the FBI had screwed up because they had the older brother, Tamerlan, in their sights. In fact, the whole family they had investigated, and they let them go. They decided it wasn't really a threat, and obviously that was a big mistake. And also he finally let it go because some other people had been misidentified as the terrorists, and they thought that it was only right to say that those weren't the terrorists. But the real reason was because Fox was going to show the pictures any minute. And someone had leaked the pictures to Fox, and the FBI didn't want to be upstaged, and so they called a conference and they showed the pictures finally. Now, they lost a lot of time because if people had seen these pictures really at the time that they had identified Black Hat and White Hat, they could have helped. Then there's a third part, which as a psychiatrist I find particularly interesting. Although you may have heard of the younger brother, Zohar, having run over his older brother in his attempt to escape, and you might have thought that that was because he had to do that in order to drive out because they were surrounded by police. And yes, that was part of it. But really, I believe that his older brother had bullied him all his life, had gotten him involved in radical Islamic terrorism, had gotten him involved in perpetrating these attacks. They did one in Boston. They were planning to continue and go to Times Square. And so when the younger brother, Zohar, realized that this wasn't as glamorous and glorious as the older brother had made it out to be, because the older brother was laying in the street with bullet holes, dying, and the younger brother realized now he's alone to sort of try to escape, I think he, at least unconsciously, if not consciously, purposely ran over his brother, or at least didn't mind that he had to run over his brother in order to escape. So, what does that tell us? That tells us that we have to learn a lot more about how homegrown terrorists, or even foreign-born but then homegrown terrorists, become radicalized so we can stop it. And we have to encourage families to tell about people in their family who they suspect of plotting terrorist attacks. I mean, it was no secret in that family. The wife of the older brother, Tamerlan, certainly knew. They had the computer out in plain sight in their house. She knew what they were plotting, and she, to this day, has refused to tell the FBI what she knows and what she knew. So all of these kinds of things have to be addressed. And what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that every day for us should be Patriots' Day. Every day should be a day when we feel patriotism and grateful that we live in this country called the United States of America. The enemy is not each other. The enemy is terrorism.